Fuck it. Hello, this is NoBSNutrition. Let's start this fucking podcast. Episode 5. Hello guys, I'm going to talk about bulking and cutting, who is it for, which audience groups, and training programs in today's episode 5 podcast. I'm pretty excited for this topic. Really, I just talk about 3 topics. That's how it goes. I talk about each topic more in detail with like 4 to 3 bullet points. If you like these type of podcasts, please like and subscribe. I want to promote it more and more often. If you have comments below, please comment. I would love to answer questions or having ideas spread around. That'll be really nicely. But let's get into it. This is gonna be a long one. Should I bulk or cut? Should I bulk or cut? Bulking is pretty much adding a calorie surplus to your maintenance calories. So your maintenance calories is to maintain your weight, or calorie surplus is to add calories on top of that. So you will gain weight over time. Well, bulking does help you with strength, extra muscle in the long term, and more benefits, of course, in the calorie surplus. You can train harder and more energy because you have so much calories to spare, right? Bulking in the short term, it should be a long-term aspect. In the short term, you most likely will gain body fat. So if I bulk 20 pounds, especially if I was a newbie, I still would gain a lot of body fat. So I actually want to keep that in mind. So that's a little summary. Cutting is pretty much cutting your calories under your maintenance. So your maintenance calories, but instead of a surplus, you're cutting calories to lose body fat, or body fat, really. That's the ideal. And cutting calories is just pretty much subtracting 500 calories or 300, and you don't want to do it too long, or you want to do it too short, or the intensity too high, because you might lose a lot of muscle mass. It's supposed to be for a long period of time, unless you're more experienced in doing a mini cut. So it just depends. What is bulking in the false reality? We just explained this. Really, the false realities I didn't explain. The false realities is you have to eat McDonald's and pizzas, etc., which that could work, and that it does increase your higher calorie expenditure. No, your higher calories maintenance into a crazy surplus like 1,000 to 2,000 calories, because you're eating mostly fast food and processed foods, which is calorie dense. It has a lot of calories for a small amount of portions, so it could work. But the problem with this, you have a lot of negative health problems, like higher blood pressure because of the sodium intake, or the amount of sodium you're consuming, extra body fat that you really don't need. It's going to cut longer, sluggish, not a lot of micronutrients, not a lot of macronutrients, and etc. That's a little short term. Bulking should be easy. I'm talking mostly about a clean bulk in a sense, but some people might need a higher calorie surplus. So if you're active like a kid, especially if you're a kid, you definitely need about a 500 to 1,000 calorie surplus. The math won't be accurate. It doesn't mean you will gain a pound on 500 calories for 7 days a week. You might gain only a quarter of a pound because your metabolism is so fast. It depends on how old are you. It depends what you're doing. It depends if you're construction worker. You might have to be in a surplus of 1,000 calories. But of course, eat relatively clean. Add some junk because it would help if you can't really stuff yourself too much. Bulking also, you might have to stuff yourself sometimes. Like sometimes you have to stuff yourself. There's no going away around it. Of course, you can make it easier by eating oil, fatty foods, and maybe more carbohydrate, less carbohydrate-dense foods like peanut butter, etc. And stuff like that. You know. That's really it for bulking. For cutting, the false reality is I have to starve myself. I have to have the intensity like a mini cut, right? I have to cut my calories in half, starve myself. Really, cutting is supposed to be in a long-term type of effect. It should be about 3 to 4 months before you go on maintenance calories and reach your new weight goal. For cutting, the reality is cut all this weight down, but no one understands weight is just a total mass. If I want to cut weight, I can cut my arm off. Or if I want to cut weight, I can literally drop a lot of water weight, right? But you have to be more specific. What is weight to you? Weight is divided by multiple things like bone density, bone weight, water weight, poop weight, etc. But if we just talk about 2, fat and muscle, which one do I want to cut down? Fat. Fat is the most important to cut down. If you cut down muscle, you'll actually be fatter, even fatter. If you're the same weight of 200 pounds, but one person cut 10 pounds of fat, instead of 10 pounds of muscle, then that person will be relatively healthier. But if the other person cut down 10 pounds of muscle, but have the same body weight, then that person's even fatter. He's actually gaining fat, if that makes sense, because he cut 10 pounds of muscle. So the fallacy is, you shouldn't starve yourself on a cut. It should be a long process. Of course, if you're experienced enough and able to do a mini cut, then go right ahead. Mini cut, you do a mini cut about 6 weeks, 3 to 6 weeks, very long, not 7 typically, but 6 weeks, about half to a quarter of your calorie maintenance, and then you go back to a bulky phase, or you just do a mini cut and go back to maintenance. That's what I would suggest. What should I do? Okay, what should I do? This is going to the other questions of bulking or cutting. I'm talking about skinny people and fat guys. A lot of people, just because you're overweight, I'm gonna talk about the fat guy first because I used to be a fat guy. So if you're fat or just relatively like overweight, like 100 pounds or etc. Also, what I would do is not trying to find your calories, not trying to find the way to cut down foods, etc. I will focus on eating less processed food, make sure I hit protein targets, and eat more clean foods. This can look like about, maybe you used to eat 80% of dirty foods, 20% clean foods. Now you're putting that down to 50-50. And Drew, why would I eat more clean foods? Well, clean foods have the benefits of having more protein, having more micronutrients, and more fats, healthy fats, to produce hormone production and hormone imbalances. If your hormones are not in check, you're not able to lose fat or build muscle, especially if you have not enough fats. Carbohydrates is a good way to actually gain more energy because it goes to your bloodstream faster. So eat some carbohydrates. Protein is the most important or second important macronutrient to build muscle and recovery. You want protein is because it's going to satisfy those cravings so you don't eat all processed foods or binge eat, etc. And the first and most important thing, is sleep. This has to work on a bulk and a cut. Sleep is the most important thing to actually benefit. If your sleep is not checked, you can forget about everything else, like I said. This helps. The cut, we just talked about cutting, etc. and like the macronutrients, right? For a fat guy, I won't suggest to cut. I just suggest to eat more whole foods. Over time, you will lose weight naturally just because you're lowering your calories, you're eating healthy foods, and you're becoming more active. Honestly, I won't call it a cut. I would just call it a better diet plan, if you say it like that. For the skinny fat people and fat guy and skinny people in general should have a good training program, right? And maybe, possibly, just go on a slight bulk. For the fat guy, he can still go on a bulk about a 300 calorie surplus, but eat relatively clean than before and still lose weight. Especially if you're speeding up that metabolism to become more active, because everyone knows if you have more calories, most likely you would do more things. So to proceed that fat loss for the skinny guy, the fat guy, especially for the fat guy or the skinny fat guy, we would go on a bulk. And what that do, like I said, is to speed up the metabolism and become more active. Okay, Drake, I don't want to get fat. How do I not get fat? Well, the reason why you're skinny fat or fat is because you didn't build a lot of muscle. This misconception that fat guys are very strong, that might be true if you work in the construction phase. But when I was 255, where typically people who don't work out, they're not strong. They just have a lot of body mass. They're not strong at all. I couldn't even pick up a 30-pound dumbbell without struggling at 255. So it's about building more muscle. That's where the protein comes in to help to produce muscle. If the fat guy produces more muscle, let's say he goes to 250, he still has a lot of fat to get off, and he builds more muscle, he'll be stronger and more healthier than you were at 300. And he's still on a surplus. Same thing for the skinny fat guy. If he's skinny fat now, he shouldn't cut because he doesn't have a lot of muscle to begin with. He should actually go on a surplus, make sure he has a good training program, make sure his sleep is in check, and make sure he eats a lot of protein. Just because when he does that, he will not change the fat into muscle, but he will build more muscle and the fat cells will shrink over time. Whew, that's a lot of talking for me right now. Let me take a breather. Let me make sure I got everything correct. Yeah, okay. If that makes sense to you, pretty much I'm just saying you should go on a bulk, most likely. Get a good training program. I don't care if you're fat or skinny or whatever. Go on a slight bulk. Have a good training program, and over time, eat relatively clean foods. That simple. That is really that simple. Actually doing it's going to be a little harder, but you get the point. Knowing it is really simple. Just do that. You won't get fat. Okay, let me find where my script is at. What really you should be focusing on, we just talked about it. You should be focusing on a bulk, have a good training program, make sure your sleep is in check, and eat clean, healthy foods. That was that little thing I just talked about. Okay, now this is the second category. The second topic is for both age audience. If you're 60 or even 40s or 60s years old, this still works. This still applies. If you're 6 years old weighing 160 pounds, female or male, you should go on a bulk. Also, extra body fat has its benefits. I'm not talking about 50 pounds of fat. I'm talking about 20 pounds of fat or even a little bit more. It has its benefits of actually not making you more sick. Of course, if you're extremely overweight, you're going to have health problems, especially if you're under muscle. So for a 6-year-old woman, I would suggest to do barbell training. Of course, this depends who I'm talking to. If this 6-year-old woman have back problems, etc., we won't go into it quickly. We'll probably do something else to relieve the pain. And then when we will focus on barbell training or something that will get her stronger the fastest way. This still works with the 40-year-old. Same thing with the 6-year-old. Doesn't matter. We will help with injury or any problems they have, mobility issues, etc., and help them with barbell training. For the younger audience, it's a little bit different. Like me, we don't have bad mobility for the most of us. We just maybe have bad posture sometimes, especially when we're on our phones, or we just don't know any body awareness. So we would still do the same thing, barbell training or prevent injury, etc. It's the same applies. It doesn't matter how old are you. It's just a little tweaking, but you get the gist. We will do the same amount of exercising or training, I would like to say. Training program. Training programs like starting strength, they focus on the 4 compound lifts, squats, bench, or deadlift, and overhead press. Okay. Mighty Pump, they have training programs for free and also training programs you can buy, and they talk about each one. They're very knowledgeable. I suggest to actually look them up. And now, training programs with barbell training programs, like starting strength or just barbell training. You can do it yourself. Of course, it depends who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to the ex-athlete or the cardio junkie who wants to do everything in 30 seconds or less, then we will try to focus on actually trying to build muscle. We're not trying to focus on endurance. To get healthier part for the long term, we have to build more muscle mass. During this process, if you build more muscle or strength, you will become stronger and more capable of doing things. You actually, if you build up your glute muscles and your hamstring muscles, you might able to run longer. That's the funny part. So we are not trying to focus on endurance and trying to become this endurance freak. We are trying to focus on building muscle and strength. We are doing 5x5 training or sometimes a 3x8. We're trying to focus on building muscle. We're not trying to focus on endurance. Of course, this is who I'm talking to, and it depends on the person. If they have an injury, we have to try something different and then go back to it. But that doesn't mean this is a cardio place just to do cardio. We are focusing on building muscle. So rest periods are typically about 4 to 5 minutes or even 6 minutes, depending how heavy is the load. But this topic is freaking crazy. I love this topic. I love talking about it. If you really have questions below, please comment below. Eating more to get big. So we just established for the skinny fat, or fat guy, they should be on a calorie surplus because it will speed up their metabolism to become more active. This will work if 3 things. If their diet is in check, so they're eating mostly clean foods. 2, if their sleep is in check, so they have no hormones imbalances or barely none. And 3, their stress profile. Physical stress and mental stress is important. If you are a construction worker, you have physical stress. You might be used to it mentally, but your body has a lot of stress, so that might not promote muscle growth. That might promote more endurance. So it's what's outside the gym also. But if you have more mental stress but less physical stress, you might not still promote a lot of muscle growth and gain actually fat. So it just depends what type of stress we're talking about. Both stress do matter. If your stress is off the chart and busy 24/7, you're not promoting muscle mass or building or losing fat either. So we have to make sure those three is in check. Wherever you're a kid or wherever you're 63 years old, you still have to make sure that those things are in check to promote muscle growth. So stress, sleep, and diet. So this is now just a summary of what I'm talking about for episode 5 podcast about should I go on a book or a cut for both audience I'm talking to. What training programs do I do for both age audience, of course, and eating more to get big. This works for the skinny guy, this is working for the skinny fat guy, and this is working for the fat guy. It works for everybody. Of course, if you have diabetes, might be careful, but reality is whatever's going to push the needle the most will be beneficial. So you just have to focus on that. Honestly, this is really it for the podcast. Like I talked about training programs, so you have to make sure you're training good. You have to make sure you're getting stronger. Just focus on performance. If you know that your performance is going down by strength-wise, you know you have to eat more or see if your sleep is off or your stress levels are high. This is really it for today's video. This is NoBSNutrition. Like and subscribe, like I said. If you're interested in different podcasts or different topics, please comment below. I really like these three topics. I think these three topics is going to help people like younger people like me or older people. So just keeping that in mind. That's really it. Bye.